Pandy is going to listen to the story because she loves U.S. history. Don't you, Pandy? Okay, let's get started. All right, World War I, 1914 to 1918. Page 4. Over 100 years ago, things were about to change in a major way in Europe. At the time, Europe was busy acquiring countries in Africa and Asia. They were building their empire during this age of imperialism. As the power of Europe grew, leaders of other countries began to get nervous with the increasing power Europe had. In response, they formed the Defense Alliance. This was an agreement that if war ever was to break out, certain countries would come together to protect each other. Page 8. No, you have to get down. There were two main groups that formed the Triple Entente, also called the Allies and the Central Powers. Our Central Powers are in pink here. So they're Germany, Austria-Hungary, Bulgaria, and the Ottoman Empire. Those are all a group called the Central Powers. The Triple Entente included the countries of Britain, France, Ireland, and Russia. You can see this is Great Britain, this is Ireland, France, and Russia. They're all outlined. The Central Powers included the countries of Germany and Austria-Hungary, which are right here. That's Germany, and this is Austria-Hungary. Both of them outlined. Page 11. But then something happened that caused things to boil over and start what became known as World War I. On July 28, 1914, the Archduke of Austria, Franz Ferdinand, and his wife were assassinated, that means to be killed, by a group of people from Serbia. This is Franz Ferdinand, and then this is his wife. And they were both killed on July 28, 1914. And this is going to be what causes World War I to start. When Ferdinand was killed, Austria-Hungary threatened to go to war with Serbia because the Defense Alliance, Germany supported Austria-Hungary. Okay, page 14. Germany had been looking for a reason to go to war and build their empire. After joining Austria-Hungary, Germany decided to attack France. You can see I'm already there to attack. The attack on France, during the attack on France, Germany decided to go through Belgium. Belgium is right here. It's a small country that was supposed to remain neutral in any war and was therefore protected from being involved, and Germany ignored it. When you stay neutral, it means that you're not going to be on either sides. Okay, the Battle of Mons occurred in Belgium in August 1914 and would be the reason Britain would enter the war, truly starting World War I. Page 17. Because Germany used Belgium to attack France, it was seen as an act against the Defense Alliance. So Britain, on the side of France, decided to declare war on Germany. Page 18. Britain was very powerful at the time, and many people thought this would be a short war, but they were wrong. The Germans fought hard, and the war lasted 4 long years in Europe, from 1914 to 1918. Things were done very differently in this war than before. The soldiers on both sides dug miles and miles of trenches or deep ditches. You can see the trench right here. See them? They dug these little holes and they're back in there, and that's protecting them. The soldiers lived and fought from these trenches. Life in the trenches was not easy. Dogs and pigeons were used to send messages and deliver supplies to soldiers located in different areas of the trenches. They would put letters in these pouches, and then they would send them to go deliver the message. The Western Front was a network of trenches that went all the way from Belgium to Switzerland. Okay, see this line right here? They dug trenches all along that line, which is a long trench. This is where most of the soldiers were located. You can also see them down in trenches here. Some of these soldiers were positioned along the front line. These were trenches that were closest to where the fighting was happening. You see them with their guns? Occasionally, soldiers were sent into no man's land to continue fighting. This was the area between the German and the British trenches and was an incredibly dangerous place to be. It was during World War I that artillery was really used for the first time. This included large weapons and vehicles that made the fighting more dangerous. There's a tank, and these were used for the first time in World War I. Similar to previous wars, the cavalry was still used. There were over 1 million horses used in World War I. Life in Britain was not easy during this time. For the first time, people were being attacked from the air with weapons as well as from the sea. Those are all graves of people who died in World War I. Okay, we're on page 27. Large blimps called Zeppelins would drop bombs from the sky onto the civilians below. Women were not allowed to fight in the war, but they did go to work for the first time. They filled the jobs the soldiers had left behind. They also worked in factories making supplies for the war. Okay, page 29. World War I was the first time a chemical weapon was used. First, they used chlorine gas, and Germany had developed poisonous gases. First, they used chlorine gas, but later developed something much worse called mustard gas. You can see they've got masks on, and those would protect them from the poisonous gases that they were releasing into the air. Mustard and chlorine gas were put into bombs and dropped into the city. The gas would cause severe burning and make it impossible to breathe. It killed people. In July 1916, the deadliest battle of the war and of all time occurred. It was the Battle of the Somme. You can see all the barbed wire, and they've got helmets on and guns. The Battle of Somme was between the German and the French British armies. It took place on both sides of the river Somme in France. Over 1 million people were killed or injured. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. America did not want to become involved in World War I, but in 1917, something changed that. Okay, we're on page 34. On May 7th, 1915, a German submarine sank a passenger ship called the Lusitania. Almost 2,000 people were killed, including 128 Americans. Kind of looks like the Titanic, but this is not the Titanic. It was a ship called the Lusitania. President Woodrow Wilson agreed to enter the war and help the British Army when Germany threatened to sink more passenger ships with Americans on board. This is President Wilson. By 1918, life in Germany had gotten very bad. The country had no money and the people were starving. The people began to rise up against those in charge, demanding an end to the war. On November 9th, 1918, Kaiser Wilhelm II stepped down as the Emperor of Germany. Okay, page 38. He signed an agreement, an armistice, that declared an end to the war. November 19th is known as Armistice Day. It took another 6 months to officially end the war, however. Okay, page 40. The Treaty of Versailles was signed June 28, 1919. It stated that Germany had to accept full responsibility for starting the war. Germany also had to give up many of its territories and agree to limit the size of their army. See, it says the treaty was signed and the war is over. Later, in January 1920, the League of Nations was formed. Okay, page 42. The League of Nations was a group of countries that came together to help rebuild Europe after the war. Even Germany joined, but later left the agreement. America refused to join, not wanting to get involved in any issues so far. All right, page 43. World War I was an incredibly deadly war for all the countries involved. Over the 4 years, we had 8 million soldiers died, 21 million soldiers were injured, and 65 million soldiers fought in the war. Okay, page 44. Many blame Germany for the start of World War I. Later, Germany would also be responsible for the start of World War II. Okay, page 45. This was a difficult time in history for Europe. Many lives were lost, but many lessons were learned.